Snow White is now 2 weekends into its theatrical run. Its first weekend was awful, it only made $87 million worldwide, and things are not getting any better for that movie. I got a few different headlines I'll show you. Some of these are just box office numbers, things like that. And I'll show you a couple other stories or tidbits that paint a pretty bad picture on Rachel Zegler, the star of Snow White. Some news stories that came out in roughly the past week. Okay, so I'm just going to start with this headline from World of Real. Box office, Working Man debuts #1, Snow White has 70% drop. 70%, folks. And Snow White is on track to lose to this movie, The Working Man, which I hadn't really heard much about The Working Man going into this, but from what people are saying, it's a pretty good movie. It's certainly not a movie that has all the publicity that Snow White has. Certainly doesn't have the marketing around it, certainly doesn't have the budget around it. And I'll just read this article from World of Real, because it's short, it's just these 4 paragraphs. Snow White is dying at the box office. No Ford's friends can save her. It's come to the point where it could fall a couple spots this weekend at the box office. Yesterday, the Disney Megabomb finished in 3rd place and is now projected to have a 70% second weekend drop. I'm starting to believe that when all this is said and done, Snow White could end its run with $300 million plus in losses for Disney. Yeah, and there have been a few people saying Disney's going to be losing a good $300, maybe $400 million from this movie. A Jason Statham-led Working Man is eyeing a $16 million debut, which by itself, that's not a huge number at first glance, but The Working Man is a much smaller budget movie, so that's something you gotta consider there. When you're a small budget movie, you don't exactly have to make as much as, say, a Disney movie in order to turn a profit. But anyway, $16 million debut for The Working Man, and that'll be good enough for #1 this weekend. Reviews have been mixed for the David Ayer directed action movie, and that B Cinema score grade is worrisome. But it only cost $39 million to produce. That's 9 times cheaper than the Snow White budget. Yeah, and I've heard all kinds of numbers for what the Snow White budget could be. It's definitely at least $250 million or $300 million. So regardless, it's an enormous budget. Now Working Man, if it makes $16 million its opening weekend on a $39 million budget, well, it's going to have a ways to go before it breaks even. It's probably going to need some good word of mouth and stuff like that, but we'll see how it does. Alright, just one more paragraph in this article. Meanwhile, a few titles are trying to get ahead of Snow White this weekend. The Chosen, a faith-based TV show, packaged up its first 2 episodes into a single movie and ended up a $5.6 million Friday. Whereas The Woman in the Yard, another horror cheapie for Blumhouse, made almost $4 million yesterday. And this was posted March 29th, so that would be, Saturday? I'm recording this on the 31st, which is a Monday, so yeah, the 29th should be a Saturday. Okay, so where is Snow White currently? $143 million worldwide. It made $87 million on its opening weekend, and then throughout the week it'll make a little more money. But after 2 weekends it's at $143 million. A week ago at this time I was thinking, okay, it had a real bad opening weekend. I mean, maybe it gets some good word of mouth, and maybe it ends up having some longer legs at the box office. I didn't think that was going to happen, but you never know. Well, here after 2 weekends, $143 million, that's all it's made. Yeah, Snow White is dropping off. Things are not getting any better for the movie. And if I look at the rankings here, box office rankings, Snow White for yesterday, Sunday, it is #1, but yeah, when I was looking at this over the weekend, there was a point where The Working Man was the top movie. And this is on Box Office Mojo. And The Working Man here, after 1 weekend, it's at $30 million. I go back to World of Real here, they were saying $16 million debut, but this was written on Saturday, posted on Saturday. Looks like the weekend numbers for this movie are $30 million on a $39 million budget. Obviously the movie's got to make more than $39 million because, you'll have marketing and you'll have theaters taking a good percentage of the cut. I mean, if you multiply that production budget by 2.5, which is a rule a lot of people use, this movie would need probably about $100 million in order to break even. It's at $30 million right now, so I don't know. We'll see if it breaks even or not. Alright, but back to Snow White here. $143 million after 2 weekends. It's dropping off with each passing weekend. It's going to make less and less money. That's usually how things go. I mean, I look at the Marvels for comparison. This movie was an enormous flop. It only made $206 million in its theatrical run. Its production budget was $275 million as I remember, and obviously you got marketing, you got theaters taking, I don't know, I think it's like half of the cut, roughly half, something like that. And if the movie did any reshoots, then that production budget's even higher. So yeah, this movie lost Disney probably a good few hundred million dollars, from what people are saying. Snow White is on track here to be as big a flop as the Marvels, maybe even worse. I'm wondering, can Snow White make even less money than the Marvels did? I mean, it looks possible. I was wondering that last week. The Marvels made more money on its opening weekend, then it had a drop off from there. I don't know where the Marvels was at the second weekend, I don't remember. But with each passing weekend, you would think Snow White's going to make less and less money in theaters, so yeah, I think it's possible for Snow White to make even less than the Marvels did. Okay, we also had this article from Variety come out a little over a week ago. And it's a pretty long article, I'm not going to go through it all, but the headline, Inside Disney's Snow White Fiasco, Threats, Beefed Up Security, and a Social Media Guru for Rachel Zegler. And I read the whole article, I'd say it doesn't paint her in a very good light. I'll just show you the juicy parts of this. So the article starts off on August 12, 2024, 3 days after Rachel Zegler hit the stage at Disney's D23 fan event to introduce the first official trailer for Snow White. She thanked supporters effusively in the next post for driving the teaser to 120 million views in 24 hours. 1 minute later, she added an afterthought in the same thread, and as always, remember Free Palestine. That addendum, which amassed 8.8 million views, nearly 4 times the number for the initial post, quickly made the rounds, with many inside the studio expressing shock that the Snow White star would commingle the promotion of its $270 million tentpole with any kind of political statement. A Disney executive raised the studio's concerns with Zegler's team, while the film's producer Mark Platt flew to New York to speak directly with her. But the actress, whose relationship with the studio began to unravel in 2022 during a contentious West Side Story awards season campaign, and continued as she trashed the beloved original Snow White, stood her ground, and the post remained. And it gets even better. Behind the scenes, you see this word here, threats towards Zegler's co-star Gal Gadot, who is Israeli, spiked, and Disney had to pay for additional security for the mother of 4. Disney executive raised concerns with Zegler's team. Mark Platt flew to New York to speak directly with Rachel Zegler, but Rachel Zegler stood her ground and the post remained. I mean, folks, when you're trying to sell a movie, when you're an entertainer, when you're an entertainment company, you never want to enter politics. When you're trying to market a movie, if you enter politics, you make political statements, the only thing you end up doing is you end up angering half of your potential audience. That's never a good business decision, ever. And Rachel Zegler did not understand this at all. And from what it looks like, people at Disney tried to explain this to her, and sounds like she was stubborn and she refused to change. At least that's what insiders here are saying. And then on top of that, Gal Gadot receiving threats which spiked. I mean, that just makes her look even worse. And then more political statements. Zegler posted F Donald Trump, may Trump supporters never know peace. Again, never enter politics when you're trying to market a movie or a show or whatever it is. All you're going to do is cut your potential audience in half. Zegler did not understand this. Now granted, I will say this, Disney, they did go to war with Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis, so Disney is not exactly innocent either. They've entered the political field, and they should not be doing that. Maybe Disney's learned from that experience that they need to keep out of politics, and so they're trying to get Rachel Zegler to shut her mouth a little bit because they know it's not going to end well. Yeah, I mean, Disney's guilty of this sort of thing too. I mean, I'll tell you this, I don't give Disney my money anymore. Just for the record, I didn't see Snow White. I don't watch any Disney stuff nowadays. My general opinion is if you're entering politics, if you're taking your properties, your IPs, and you're updating them for modern audiences, I'm not giving you my money. I think the best way to fight this sort of current day nonsense is with your wallet, and evidently a lot of people out there agree with me because Disney's had a lot of flops over the last few years. Okay, what other stuff do we have here? So after Zegler posted F Donald Trump, Platt made the case again to her. After a back and forth, she began working with a social media guru paid for by Disney to vet any posts before the film's March 21st bow. Evidently Rachel Zegler, she can't keep her mouth shut. And make no mistake, that's the biggest reason why Snow White is flopping. Yes, from what people say, they did update the movie for modern audiences. They did put a lot of current day type of stuff into the Snow White movie, but ultimately it's Rachel Zegler and all the stuff she said about the original Snow White, calling the princess stalker and that kind of stuff, and Rachel Zegler making political statements. That's ultimately what killed this movie above all else. Make no mistake about it. And then we had this statement, I guess this was on Instagram one day. Jonah Platt, who's the son of Mark Platt, somebody was asking him about how his father was talking to Rachel Zegler in person about political statements that she was making. And let's see what he had to say. He says, "You really want to do this? Yeah, my dad, the producer of enormous piece of Disney IP with hundreds of millions of dollars on the line, had to leave his family to fly across the country to reprimand his 20-year-old employee for dragging her personal politics into the middle of promoting the movie for which she signed a multi-million-dollar contract to get paid and do publicity for. This is called adult responsibility and accountability, and her actions clearly hurt the film's box office. Free speech does not mean you're allowed to say whatever you want in your private employment without repercussions. Tens of thousands of people worked on that film, and she hijacked the conversation for her own immature desires at the risk of all the colleagues and crew and blue-collar workers who depend on that movie to be successful. Narcissism is not something to be coddled or encouraged." Folks, I don't think you could have said it any better. I mean, this statement right here, this hits it right between the eyes. Now, back when Rachel Zegler's comments about calling the prince in the original Snow White a stalker and that kind of stuff, when that stuff was resurfacing, I don't know, a year and a half ago, my commentary on it, I think I was easier on her than other people. I did say she was, 21 at the time when she made those statements. She is still young. Maybe she doesn't quite realize that you gotta be careful what you say publicly and how you promote the movie, that sort of thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, the statements she made were terrible and stupid, but I think I was easier on her than other people. But even after all the backlash, she's still making stupid statements publicly. She's still constantly opening her mouth. Back in November, the election didn't go her way, and she tells half the country, "May you never know peace," basically. And this guy here, Jonah Platt, he hits this on the head. Rachel Zegler was given this incredible opportunity to be a star in a major film for a major entertainment company, Disney. And again, I don't give Disney my money these days, but they are a huge company and they are a huge brand name. So from Rachel Zegler's perspective, yeah, you've been given a huge opportunity here. Rachel Zegler signed a multi-million-dollar contract, as Jonah Platt put it. That's way more money than what most people make, and with this kind of opportunity, yeah, you're going to have a level of responsibility that comes along with it. That responsibility being, your job is to help promote this movie. Don't make political statements. Don't attack half the country. Realize that there are, Jonah Platt said, tens of thousands of people working on Snow White, and they're all dependent on you not tanking the film. Yeah, I mean, when you sign a big contract like that, there's a big level of responsibility that comes along with it. Rachel Zegler clearly did not understand this. And I want to ask you this question, because again, Snow White, yeah, they did make the dwarfs look terrible. I hear the film's kind of a mess. They did update it for modern audiences. But at the end of the day, the ultimate reason this movie's tanking is because of Rachel Zegler. Make no mistake about it. The question I'd like to ask you is, do you think Disney ever works with Rachel Zegler again after this? After she almost single-handedly tanks this movie, causing Disney to lose, people are saying $300 million from this movie. Do you think Disney's ever going to work with her after this? Do you think anyone in Hollywood's ever going to work with her again after this? Do you think other studios in Hollywood are going to see what she did to Snow White and say, nope, we don't want anything to do with her? Now, I looked up briefly, does Rachel Zegler have any upcoming roles that she's going to be in? I found this article, I guess it's from Mandatory. It's very short. What does it say? Rachel Zegler currently has no confirmed upcoming movies lined up after Snow White. I guess she's going to be going into theater, that sort of thing, but no actual movies according to this article. Now I have a second article here pulled up. This is also from Mandatory. Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot rumored for Marvel roles after Snow White. So there is that. There are rumors that she might be playing some kind of role in a Marvel movie. But if you're Disney, why would you work with her again after the Snow White fiasco? Why the hell would you even consider casting her for anything? If I were Disney, I wouldn't. Absolutely not. I mean, if this rumor's true and she's being eyed for like a smaller role or something like that, that might be different, but if I'm them, I wouldn't consider working with her. Oh, look, what does it say here? Snow White stars Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot are both being considered for big roles in the MCU. Which character would you like to see them portray in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Marvel hasn't been doing all that great lately. I don't think it'd be a good idea to cast Zegler in a major role. I mean, look, if this rumor is true, this is just rumor right now. But yeah, if I'm them, I'm not working with her. Alright, that's about all I have for right now. Snow White, it's at $143 million worldwide. as of this recording. I'll be keeping an eye on this. The big thing I wonder is this movie gonna flop as bad as the Marvels? Will it make less money than Marvels? We'll see. I think Snow White can do it. And yeah, I wonder if Disney's gonna learn anything from this utter disaster. I don't know, we'll see. Bye everyone.